as if we needed more reasons, we have another one to hate DRM on games.
Nice.
It looks like Alder Lake may have incompatibility issues with older DRM protected games.
Oh my goodness, this totally makes sense.
Intel's developer guide states that the problem is that older games that are no longer actively being patched include DRM that may get confused by their big little architecture, because some DRM uses CPU detection as part of its routines, and big little is going to be confusing to it.
And if you've been following the WAN show for a long time, you'll know that Denuvo, and some other ones, but definitely Denuvo, does that, and to a big degree. So, yep, makes sense.
So,
Yikes.
There's some questions here. Could we possibly get around this with a virtualized, like a kind of a transparent to the user, hey, let's quickly pass through all of our hardware to a VM, except not efficiency cores because they're confusing. Could we run this in like a compatibility mode? Is that something that, Microsoft and Intel could work together on? That seems possible.
I think so.
But you'd have to get NVIDIA to play ball. They would have to allow GPU pass-through in that way, and I suspect that they won't do it, because the second they allow that, you're going to have people using it as a workaround to finally get proper GPU virtualization working on consumer cards.
It is kind of a way that people have gotten around things in the past, though. You can emulate different types of hardware, so...
Well, it wouldn't be emulation. It would be NVIDIA allowing their GPU cores to be sliced up in the same way that CPU cores now. They only allow it on their enterprise
I believe you can also do it with
now.
emulation, but you'd lose like an incredible amount of performance, so it wouldn't be a thing.
If it's only older games,
really
it might be
time.
okay eventually.
Eventually, yeah. I think this would be a really, really tough thing to do in the near future.
Yeah, you can emulate. Actually, you know what? That might be a pretty good answer, because you can emulate old CPUs already, but you wouldn't even have to emulate the CPU, because your CPU you could just pass through. You could use virtualization for the CPU, and then you could emulate the functionality of the GPU, which might be somewhat easier to do. My understanding is CPU emulation is more difficult, but don't quote me on that.
I don't know. Yeah.
In fact, I'd love it if there are some developers in the audience that could help point us in the right direction on that. Anyone on Floatplane chat? Luke's going to be checking on it.
I'll see it
for the next little bit here.
Yep.
There's a couple more discussion points here. Intel is apparently working with DRM providers such as Denuvo to ensure these new platforms are supported. So that'll be great for newer titles that are still being patched by their developers.
Yeah.
But there is no telling what's going to happen to older games.
They're probably going to get abandoned.
Is it going to be worth upgrading to Alder Lake if it means that you can't easily play a bunch of your older games? Should the DRM for these titles simply be turned off? Okay, well, that's an obvious answer. Yes, it should.
Yeah, and that has happened. We know it's possible.
Yeah, it's 100% possible. GOG is evidence that is totally possible and totally a thing. According to leaks from Micro Center, pricing and specs for the Core i9-12900K are as follows: 16 cores, so 8 performance, 8 efficient, 24 threads, so that's 2 per performance core and only 1 per efficiency core, 3.2 gigahertz base, 5.2 gigahertz turbo, 30 megs of level 3 cache, 125 watt thermal power, we'll see. DDR4 3200 or DDR5 4800, and coming in at $669. Nice. That's a lot of money. That part's not nice, but the numbers nice.